I actually wanted to teach you about weight changes in relation to inflammation, as well as when you're healing in the program. So what is the body weight? So when you step on the scale, what you're really measuring is the mass of all your tissues and all the food and water you have consumed, as well as have eliminated, or you haven't eliminated yet. So it means all the waste that's in your body, which is urine, and the fecal matter and the glycogen in the muscle. All of these will represent your weight. So your weight is not just body fat, it's also everything that you see in this picture. So when you see changes in your body scale, you will almost always see the number change. But what actually changes the body weight? So it means the amount of water you're drinking, the food you're eating, and how much you're going to the bathroom, and the mass of your feces and your urine, as well as the glycogen weight amount, and the medications can influence your body weight and even inflammation. So both acute and systemic inflammation can influence the change in body weight. And your weight can also change in relation to your body fat and muscle too. This is the mass of the food that you eat. Let's say you eat 2 to 3 pounds of food, the body processes it and it divides into those two wastes, which is the solid and the water waste. And a lot of people, when they look at their body changes, body weight changes, they see the scale either changes up or down, people get distressed. So some people, if they see the increase in weight, they're thinking they're gaining body fat, but other people, if they see decrease in weight, they're thinking they're losing body fat. But what actually it means is you are just eliminating more food, you're having good bowel movements, and which can cause the weight to go down. So in order for you to have zero changes in weight, you have to actually eat the same amount of food and eliminate the exact same amount. But it doesn't work that way. A body will never, let's say you eat 10 pounds of food, it's never going to be the same amount. So the same amount you will eliminate through your feces or through your urine. So from the time you measure yourself on the scale to the next time, it's not going to be the same amount of weight that you saw before. And a lot of people miss the fact that the weight of the food they're consuming is a huge factor. You probably, like I said, consuming 8 to 10 pounds of food and water in a day, but how much you're eliminating, that varies a lot based on how constipated you are or how much you can hold on to your bowels. It depends on the volume of urine that comes out and how difficult it is for you to go sometimes as well. So that's what can affect your changes. And the opposite can happen. You could eat 10 pounds of food and water, but you could eliminate the next day 12 pounds, and which can cause you to have a 3-pound loss on the same day or the next day. And these are huge numbers. So the amount of loss happens so fast within 24-hour period. So you have to make sure that you take that in consideration when you look in your body weight. And whenever we see someone gets upset, 1 pound, a few pounds of body weight fluctuation, because you can actually have your weight can fluctuate by 10 pounds from the food you're eating and the water you're drinking and the weight of the food and the fluid you eliminating, how much you're able to eliminate. And as well as inflammation weight, we'll talk about in this class, inflammation, how it can also affect how much water you retain, which can cause increase in body weight. So most likely people who are losing weight in the first 1, 2, 3 weeks, you're not using the body fat, you're losing inflammation weight. So, but what is another big influencer is glycogen. Glycogen is stored form of carbohydrates in the muscles and the liver tissues. So whenever you engage in a hard workout, it's coming from the stored muscle glycogen. So you have a good 600 grams you can store 600 grams of glycogen. And glycogen is something that your body is expanding and replenishing on a daily basis. And you can expend it anytime you do any type of physical movement, like walking. And at the same time, every time you eat, you replenish the glycogen. So every time you store 1 gram of glycogen, and in order for it to keep in a muscle and liver, we have to also add water to it 3 to 4 grams of water. So a typical person stores 600 grams of glycogen. And if you add the weight and the mass of the water, we look at around 1,800 to 2,400 grams. And then you convert that to pounds, it's about 4 to 5 pounds. It's coming from the glycogen we're holding in the muscle and liver. So the rate of how much we replenish and expand is based on your body movements and your physical activity. And we have a difference in how much goes in and how much goes out. Again, how much you're eating, how much glycogen you eat, the fruits you're eating. You're going to see a difference in your weight changes on the scale based on that as well, how much glycogen you're storing in your body or how much you're using up. So 4 to 5 pounds for a typical person, a difference in the weight, this can be different, again, due to how much glycogen goes in and how much goes out. So for a big athlete, we've seen it much larger, depending on the size of the person you are and how much muscles you have. That means greater variation in body weight, depending on how much you measure just from glycogen alone. And physical exertion expands glycogen and stimulates greater storage of glycogen. So let's say you're doing heavy weight training. This stimulates your muscles to store an even greater capacity of glycogen. And you start working out really hard, your body will replenish and store more in the muscles, which helps you lift more and longer and recover a lot faster. But this can also increase the changes you see in your body weight. Okay, so this is another thing they can change your weight. Another one is inflammation or medication. The most common type we see for majority of our clients is corticosteroids. They're known for commonly causing fat gain and muscle loss, as well as fluid retention, which is going to be the biggest weight factor. And corticosteroids actually change your body's metabolism. You may have seen a famous singer, her name just slipped out of, Selena Gomez. Selena Gomez, she was diagnosed with lupus nephritis years ago, and her kidneys failed, and she got a kidney transplant. But she has to be on prednisone, and she has to be on immunosuppressants for the rest of her life because she has a new kidney. And these steroids caused her a lot of weight gain because they change your metabolism. And it also changes how your body utilizes excess blood sugar and biases conversion towards body fat, then towards glycogen, and it's not a good thing. So depending on your current medical condition, it's a loss you have to take. Maybe these medications are saving your life at the moment, and they also change your electrolyte and water balance as well. And that's what creates a massive increase in water retention and big blood. So the common weight gain is 48% from your baseline body weight over 2 years caused by steroids. So let's say you're 100 pounds like Selena Gomez was at one time. Over the course of 2 years, you can expect to gain 4 to 8 pounds during the time being on steroids. And a 200-pound person can gain up to 16 pounds over the same years. And it's a significant amount of weight due to steroids. So when it comes to medications, be aware of the side effects. And when you're trying to look at your body weight and see if it's something that's harmful to you, look at the medications and the side effects. And it could be explained why you gained weight because you're on medications. Okay. And so more or less, it's a temporal solution because you can reduce the medications when you're healed. And we do have a number of clients, the doctor actually reduced their medications. We had a client with lupus nephritis. She was on multiple steroids, and her doctor retested her blood work. I think it was 40 days or 30 days in our program, and her blood work improved. She had no autoimmune activity. Her autoimmune markers were down, her kidney function improved, her inflammation went down, her doctor reduced her medication. Her doctor reduced. So if you're on medications, of course, speak to your doctor about it. Do not try to reduce it on your own. So another influence is inflammation. We're going to talk about systemic and chronic inflammation. So inflammation increases retention of fluid. And when you retain fluid, you will see increase in body weight. And if you see decrease in inflammation, you will see decrease in body weight and decrease in retention. So that's why a lot of people in our program, when they're losing body weight, they're not necessarily losing body fat or muscle, which we're going to talk about how hard it is to lose body fat and how hard it is to gain or lose muscle. It requires a lot of physical activity, but most people are losing inflammation weight, which again, it can be a big difference in your weight. So optimizing hydration decreases retention. So a lot of people, if they dehydrated as they are in the program, sometimes your body can hold on to the water. But then once your body is hydrated, it will release all the water that you've been holding on to it because your body is finally hydrated. It doesn't need to hold on to the water anymore. So decreasing inflammation decreases retention, which reduces body weight. And all bodies are 60% water. So just 2% retention, each cell has its own ingredients on the inside, and most of it is water. And when the cell increases its retention and water 2%, and you scale it across all the cells in the body, a 200-pound person will see 2% retention of 60% water will equate to 2.4 weight in changes. So that's why it explains if you're losing 3 pounds in the first 1 or 2 weeks, is because you're losing inflammation and retention of water. So I hope this helps you understand weight changes, what can affect them. So let's talk about a lot of people get really misunderstood is body fat. The process of losing body fat, changing real tissue in your body, adipose tissue, your fat cells, reducing the size of those fat cells, and the content inside of them requires different cascade of hormones that get elicited from mainly exercise to tell those fat cells to release fatty acids and use it for energy and form it into the byproducts of carbon dioxide and water and all those things. We have a mass that has a mass to them. And it's not until you urinate it out or breathe it out, you see net loss in body fat. So body fat is very hard to come off. It requires a lot of physical exertion. A lot of people think that they see a scale drop by 10 pounds in 5 days. We already explained what can change a 10-pound body drop in a short amount of time. It's not going to come from body fat, a real body fat. The real amount you can lose is about a quarter of pound per week. And it's typical for someone who's exercising 5 to 6 hours per week, which is a lot. So it takes several weeks of data just to know how much true body fat you lost. So if you start losing body fat, you will see more definition and all indication of reduced body fat. But some of you also notice it comes to a standstill. The lighter you get, the more exercise it's going to take to continue to lose body fat. And the reason is that the typical 200-pound biological female is only a 120-pound person who is buried under 80 pounds of body fat. So if you lose weight, usually it's easier to lose body fat when you're heavier in the beginning, and then after that people plateau. So you're guaranteed to lose a significant amount of body fat, which is coming from the tissues you're holding on to, as you reduce it through exercise. So it does require exercise, you exercising harder and longer duration to continue losing body fat. And gaining body fat is also harder than what people understand. We explained what can cause an easy 5 to 10 pound weight gain. It's a difference between the amount of food you're consuming or the food you're eliminating, how constipated or not constipated you are. It also a difference between how much water you're retaining or eliminating. And when people binge on food, they usually binging on food that leads to greater water retention, because like junk food, high sodium food. So to gain the full pound of body fat, you have to consume excess 3,500 calories on top of the normal calories you eat. The same thing is to lose 1 pound of body fat, you also have to eat over 3,000 calories less every day to lose 1 pound of body fat. So if you gain 1 pound of body fat, it means that you have to consume 3,500 calories on top of your regular calories. So let's say you eat 2,000 calories, it's going to require you to eat 5,000 calories to gain 1 pound of body fat, which is impossible unless you eat pizza all day. That's how you can get 5,000 calories in a day. You probably have to eat 5 boxes of pizza too. And that's what can cause you if you see a weight gain in a day. So again, that's why body fat and fat loss is difficult to achieve. And so also to gain body fat, it requires insulin spikes in large amount. And the only time your body can create body fat is when it sees a large amount of release of insulin into the bloodstream to signal the gates for the muscles to open to allow the free-floating excess blood sugar and fatty acids to enter into those tissues, including your fat tissues. So what happens when you have repeated spikes in insulin, you're not eating the right things on a regular basis, like processed foods, you're creating insulin spikes on a regular basis. Fast food does that, enough of those, you can start creating what's called insulin resistance, which leads to inflammation, which leads to greater retention, which leads to greater dramatic gains in body fat, and also creates increase in body weight from water retention, eventually leads to diabetes. So body fat by itself is much harder to gain than people think. Usually when you gain a lot of weight, a small portion of that is from body fat, the rest of the majority is from other things we talked about. Eating junk food easily can make you gain water retention. So if you were to, let's say you were purposely to lose muscle, how would you actually pull that off? Muscle is lost as a result of less load on the muscle. It would have to happen in a way where you are regularly working out and then you just stopped working out. You will start seeing a reduction in the muscle. Your body has a mechanism where it makes your muscles as big as they need to be. And if it no longer sees the need to be where it was, you're no longer adding weight through weightlifting and stress, the body will shrink the muscles and your body can be more efficient to be less heavy. If you don't need the extra strength, you're just going to go ahead and destroy the extra tissues that you don't need. And it also result of true starvation, which of course doesn't happen in a program. True starvation is when you go through psychological effects where all you can think about is food, putting food in your mouth, no matter what it looks like. That's a true starvation, makes your brain go into the panic mode where you have to consume anything you can when you're in that state, and your stomach actually hurts while you are in a true starvation, and then it stops hurting. So true starvation is so difficult to achieve, and it's impossible in the program because you're getting lots of nourishment from the food. Even if you're under eating on your calories, you're still getting more than enough nutrients from food. So it's not starvation, okay? So when you start on this path, when you're eating more nutrient-dense foods and the processed carbohydrate content starts to get reduced in exchange for higher nutrient density, your muscles start to let go of extra glycogen. And majority of the people in this program are also not working out because they have a lot of physical pain. So if you're not working out, you're removing extra glycogen and water, of course, it's going to cause a decrease in body weight, okay? And you're not overfeeding yourself on junk food, which keeps the inflammation high. So you will start to see reduced glycogen storage. And if you reduce it by 10 to 15% in 24 to 48 hour drop in weight, that's about 2 to 4 pounds in some cases. In just 24 hours, you can lose 2 to 4 pounds when you reduce muscle glycogen. It reduces the size of your muscles, but not the size of your tissues, okay? So let's talk about gaining muscle. You don't gain muscle by sitting. There's no reason for your muscles to get any bigger. And if they get any bigger, it's because the glycogen stores got filled, not because the muscle tissue itself got bigger. So muscle gains size as a result of working out with heavy weights and combined with over nourishment. So in order to gain muscles, you have to do heavy weight training, but you also have to overeat. And muscular gain are very slow. They're much higher in men because of the testosterone they possess. So they're much slower in women. So you have to start weightlifting heavily and frequently in order to begin the process of this. And you have to put in more food than you comfortably able to do. So large gains in strength and stamina always precede gains in mass of muscle tissue, which means you will be dramatically more stronger and have more stamina before you start seeing the big changes in muscle tissue. That's why if you have been sitting on the couch and you walk for exercise, if you gain weight and it's not because you got stronger, you need to create physical stress and demand on your muscle in order to signal the process of getting bigger to start. And you have to also combine it with a lot of food. Finish up this class, it's a pretty short presentation. So when we look at the body weight scale, you see changes going on, happening. And I want you to understand what the big influences are. So your brain can rewire the interpretation and know what's going on with your body weight. So in day one, if you gained anywhere from 2 to 10 pounds, the biggest influencer is going to come from food, water, urine, feces. And up to 2 to 3 days, it can be glycogen, depending on your activity you're doing. If you went on a high activity level for several days, let's say you went biking and you didn't access the food, you didn't eat as much, you can see glycogen drop because it's not getting replenished. And your pounds will drop in 2 to 3 days. And that can stack up and you can fluctuate by 14 pounds. And you can also get systemic inflammation, which is most of our clients dealing with. It is inflammation in the program. So if you were recently diagnosed with an inflammatory disease, you can expect to see body weight going up if you have inflammation. But if you follow a program in a couple of weeks, you can start to see dramatic drop in body weight because inflammation is coming down dramatically. There's less retention that's happening, and this can easily account for 2.5 pounds. And let's look at the effect of medications. Again, 4% of body weight gain, which is average 0.5 pounds per week, which is medications as well, if you reducing the medications. So when people see changes in, this is what I talked about. I forgot to switch the slide. This is what I just talked about. Food, water, urine, feces, they can affect 10 pounds in body weight. Glycogen, again, can also change your body weight if you're active, if you're not eating as much, you're not replacing your glycogen. They can also affect your weight by 4 pounds. And inflammation, 2.5 pounds per week. You can see 2.5 pounds per week, 4 pounds per 2 to 3 days, 10 pounds per day. You can change your weight by 15 pounds in just a few weeks if all of these things are changing. Okay. And when people see changes in body weight, they assume it's coming from loss of muscle or loss of body fat. The reality is different. People who've been sick for a long time, they're always in the habit of assuming worst case scenario because their whole life since being sick has been a disaster. So the brain will be biased towards disaster-based logic. So body fat requires, again, exercise and eating right. So you should expect to lose about 0.5 pound of body fat per week. It requires exercise, only 0.5 pound body fat per week, versus all of these can cause much greater change in body fat, which again depends how much you're eating, how much you're eliminating. So if you're no longer constipated as much as you used to be before, you're eliminating more food and old feces. People can have 10 pounds of old feces stuck in their colon. That gets eliminated, of course. So body fat requires exercise, and in reality, you could change your body fat 0.5 pound per week when you're exercising, or you can gain body fat 0.5 pound per week. And muscle going up and going down, seeing muscle drop, you have to have a big drop in physical activity in addition to not eating anything, because muscle is pretty resilient, and usually it's a glycogen changing up and down, convincing people that they're losing muscle, but it's a glycogen changing in your muscle. So in reality, it's about 0.3 pound per month. if we are on optimistic side, how much muscle you can gain or lose, 0.3 pound per month. If you want to gain muscle, you requires heavy lifting and overeating on macros as well, fat, carb, and protein, everything. So when you see a drop in body weight, you have to assume these are the last two things that are causing it, or gaining body weight. But most of the time, you have to assume if you're gaining weight or losing weight, these are the big influences in a short amount of time, right? So I want you to understand that. And just a summary, temporal versus long-term is the source behind the source of people's true worries. So the temporal stuff, such as weight changes that are happening almost on a daily basis, has nothing to do with the true body tissue. They're temporal because they're influenced by acute adjustment and what's going on with your consumption of food and energy levels inside your muscles. So these are the things we consider no big deal: food, water, urine, feces, how much glycogen again you store, medications included bloat and inflammation. These are your temporal changes. And medically induced bloat is medications you're consuming and you stay in a long time as advised by your doctor because you're trying to create a greater benefit in spite of dealing with greater bloat and greater body fat percentage because of those steroids like we talked about. They actually change your metabolism. But people in our program are eventually able to get off these medications, and that's why we call these temporal. That's why they fall in the temporal category, because once you're off, you can experience reduction in body weight that comes from reduction in inflammation, and it comes from reduction in retention. And there's also acute inflammation when you're working out really hard and you're creating sore muscle. That's going to make your weight temporarily go up because you're retaining several pounds of fluid, and then you drop it in the moment your muscles are healed. So you probably heard some people exercising a week and then they go look at their weight. Oh my God, I gained 1 or 2 pounds, even though I've been working so hard at the gym. And then by the time the weekend comes, their muscles healed, they drop the fluid and the pounds go down. So it comes down to what to be really concerned about is the tissues in your body, which we talked about. So let's show you what the numbers are. Temporal influences can cause you plus or minus 17-pound swing in your body weight. Temporal stuff is usually nothing to worry about. We gave you examples what those are that can temporally influence your body weight. Understand the reality is that you are only going to be able to best lose 0.3 to 0.5 pound of body fat per week. And if you see the weight go up by a couple of pounds per week, this tells you that it's not coming from fat. And the same thing, if you see the weight go down by a couple of pounds per week, you know it's not coming from fat as well, because we explain it here. Looking at the size of weight change and the length of time is what gives us accurate data as what's causing it. So if you gain, let's say you gain 10 pounds in 1 week, what's the possible cause? What's the answer? It's a temporal category. We talked about that, the food, the inflammation, the water you consume, how much glycogen you store in your muscles. Are you replenishing your glycogen? Are you eating enough of glycogen to store more in the muscle? And temporal reasons are not the cause for alarm. And the mindset you should have is why this is fascinating. This is what my body does. This is the ranges that it can function. And if you're eating a perfectly nutritious diet, which is in this program, you put in more nutrients in the body than your body needs to be able to do its function. You're overnourished. You are more than nourished. Therefore, there's no alarm for any scale for being changing, being malnourished. Body fat and muscle change requires weeks and months to assess. So if someone says, I'm afraid I lost muscle, and it's only been a week worth of data, it's impossible to assess how much muscle you gained or lost because the data varies so much every day. Okay. And the speed of increasing tissue mass, creating new tissues and losing it so it happens so slow compared to temporal factors that we talked about. And systemic inflammation is only cause for alarm, and even muscle loss is not a big cause of alarm because it happens so slowly. Muscle loss happens so slowly, and the reason for muscle loss is easily explainable when you look at the activity level, or if you look at the person, also steroids or medications can cause actual muscle loss. So systemic inflammation is, again, people can gain weight with that, and it's not a cause of alarm because you're losing inflammation in the program. And basically, it is advised not to weight yourself every single day, but the advice comes from helping you get past your emotional influencers. Some people want to gain weight, some people want to lose weight, but if you weigh yourself every day, you're going to freak out. But you can do this for just one day. You can measure and record your body weight every hour from the time you wake up and by the time you go to bed, and plot it on the graph. And you see at the highest weight recorded and the lowest weight recorded, and you can see in one day how much your body weight fluctuates up and down. Every hour you have to weigh it. It can fluctuate. And I've been able to fluctuate by 5 pounds in just a day, depending how much I ate, how much I eliminated. Did I go to the bathroom or did I not go to the bathroom? At any point you step on the scale, you can be off by 5 pounds, plus or minus. And if you are heavier in weight, it can be even higher as well. And that's, again, so you can measure and record your weight every day. Do it for the first thing in the morning after you've gone to the bathroom, and do it for 28 days. Plot it on a graph for each week and identify the highs and the lows for each week and compare that to the highs and the lows of each other. And they will help you understand your trend and fluctuations on a weekly basis. And in order to know if you actually gained 2 pounds of muscle or fat, it takes several weeks of data to figure it out. It helps you start looking at it like a scientist. But again, like we talked about, to gain muscle, you have to do a lot of physical activity and eat a lot of food.